Location: Pinevale Temporary Refugee Camp, 30 miles from Atlanta, USA. Time: the first minutes of the zombie apocalypse. It is a dark night. Rain is falling on the tents and metal roofs. There are hundreds of people in the camp. Some are sleeping, some are holding children in their arms, and some are waiting for the promised reinforcements. This place was supposed to be temporary: evacuation points, tents, generators, National Guard security. Lewis Harris, a volunteer and former paramedic, stands in the command tent, looking at his tablet. Radio communication with cities is suddenly cut off. The last message from Atlanta reports fire contact, chaos on the roads, and rebels are aggressive and infecting others. "Is this some kind of biological weapon?" asks Lieutenant Morales, a security officer. "I don't know, but it's definitely not a riot. People don't bite each other for no reason." Suddenly, a siren sounds in the distance. Then an explosion. The sky in the southeast glows orange. A minute later, the radio comes to life. "Blackstone Camp. Breach. We're under fire and—" They're not. And then noise. After that, silence. People in the camp begin to wake up. A woman screams. "What happened? Are we safe?" Morales raises his rifle. "Everyone stay where you are. Keep calm." But calm is the last thing left in the air. Camp Pinevale does not yet know that it has become the last safe haven within a 50-mile radius. But that safety is fragile, and the night has only just begun. The rain continues. Water runs down the canvas walls, and puddles form underfoot. The medical tent is full, mostly colds, hypothermia, exhaustion. But now there is a new patient, a man in his 50s, brought in by the National Guard from a destroyed evacuation convoy. A bite, shoulder muscle deep. "Looks like an animal," says Lewis Harris, examining the wound. The skin around it is blackened and infected. His heart rate is elevated. His temperature is 41 degrees Celsius. "He started delirious in the car," adds Nurse Sarah. The man is lying unconscious. But suddenly, he jerks. Sharply. He jumps up. There is nothing human in his eyes. He grabs a young paramedic and sinks his teeth into his face. Panic ensues. Sarah screams. Luis drops everything and pushes her out of the tent. Inside, a shot rings out. One of the soldiers on duty at the entrance opens fire. The patient falls. The orderlies are in shock. One is hysterical. The other is seriously wounded. "Close the tent. Isolate everyone who was inside," Morales orders. But it's too late. Another patient in the neighboring tent begins to convulse. A bite on the leg. The story is similar. "This is not an isolated case," says Sarah. "It's contagious." Very quickly, outside, people are gathering, some crying, some trying to break through to the medical center, looking for their relatives. The doors to the medical unit are closed. Inside, there are screams. In the first 42 minutes after the incident, 5 more people are infected. Luis looks at his clothes. They are stained with blood. He silently goes to wash his hands. With very cold soap. For a very long time. "We've lost control of the medical sector," says Lieutenant Morales, clenching his fists. 2 dead. One is our soldier. Bitten. The infected turned in 16 minutes. On the table is a map of the camp. The medical unit is circled in red. The generator, food storage, and living area are circled in blue. Everything else is gray, like a risk zone. Luis stands next to Sarah, still tense after what he saw. "You must isolate the camp. Completely. Don't let anyone out. Otherwise, it will break out." "You want me to turn the refugee camp into a prison?" objects the young captain, Edwards. "There are children there, pregnant women, people who have just fled the city. And you say isolate." Morales glares at him as if striking him. "I saw a soldier faint at his post today. He was bitten while trying to help. 20 minutes later, he got up and attacked his comrade. This is not a disease. It's something worse. And we have no right to make mistakes." The camp is divided into sectors. All medical tents are in quarantine. The main passage is guarded by a machine gun. They begin to remove people who have been in direct contact with the infected. Panic spreads. People notice that the guards have stopped letting anyone out. A man shouts that his child is in another sector. A woman tries to break through. A soldier stops her. Someone throws a stone at the guard. This is no longer a refugee camp, Sarah says quietly. It's a cage with matches next to a gas tank. Lewis is silent. He already has a plan in mind, to find the old radio station in the western corner of the camp. Maybe there is still a chance to contact someone, anyone, before everything explodes. The rain has stopped, but the tension is only growing. People have gathered at the main checkpoint. They demand answers. They shout and throw bottles. National Guard soldiers try to hold the line, but fear seeps into even their voices. Let us out. They're killing people in there. My daughter has a fever. She needs a doctor. This is a prison, not a camp. At the radio station, Lewis and Sarah are trying to connect the equipment. They manage to pick up a short signal from the east. All survivors head northwest. Evergreen Base is still holding. Code black throughout Georgia. Then there was a hissing sound. Sarah looked at Lewis. The base is still there. We need to hold out until dawn at least. But at that moment, the camp exploded, not from the outside, but from the inside. One of the guards, a young soldier named Garrett, takes off his armor without permission and opens the passage for a dozen people who were trying to escape from the quarantine zone in panic. His wife is among those isolated. He wants to save her. They run several dozen yards when a muffled growl is heard from the darkness. One of the infected has broken through with them. In 30 seconds, the first bites. Screams. Gunshots. Chaos. The sectors begin to crumble. The infected seep into the residential area. Refugees scatter in all directions. Some carry weapons stolen from the warehouse. Morales orders through a megaphone. Everyone to the northern perimeter. Hold the line. But discipline is gone. The soldiers can't handle the psychological pressure. Some shoot, others run away. The camp turns into a war zone. Louise takes Sarah by the hand. There's no time. Grab the first aid kit. We'll get out whoever we can and get out of here. The infected are already approaching. They're running. They're tearing. They do not die easily. Everything is burning. The kitchen where soup was cooked last night is burning. The warehouse, which they did not have time to distribute to the people, is burning. The silence is burning, transformed into growls, screams, and machine gun fire. Lewis and Sarah move low, hiding between the tents. There are 4 others with them, 2 volunteers and 2 refugees, including a 12-year-old boy named Jamie with lung disease. The northern fence is our only chance. If we get out that way, there's a forest. And there, maybe we can make it until dawn, whispers Lewis. They're everywhere, Lewis. They're everywhere. Sarah shakes, clutching the radio, the only one that still works. They pass the central perimeter. Bodies are scattered around. Some are still moving. The infected are not afraid of bullets unless they hit them directly in the head. One of the refugees, Scott, a former Marine, takes a rifle from a dead soldier. I'll lead the way. If I have to shoot, I'll shoot. But quietly, okay. The group approaches the northern fence. There are 2 guard tents there. One is destroyed. The other is closed from the inside. The guard yells that he won't open it for anyone. You don't understand. Lewis pleads. We're not infected. There's a child in there. In response, there is only fear and the sound of a broken radio. And then, growling. Behind them, 5 infected. Exhausted, but swift. Jamie notices them and screams. The group rushes forward. Scott opens fire. One falls. Another jumps over the body. Lewis pushes the gate. It's locked. Leave it to me. Sarah shouts and sets off a homemade explosive made from gas cylinders she had been hiding for the kitchen. Back. Explosion. The gate is torn off its hinges. The group breaks into the forest. Behind them is fire. The camp is burning. Ahead are trees, fog, and the unknown. We're alive, Sarah whispers. But how much longer can we hold out? The fog settles between the trees like a spider's web. The cold penetrates to the bone. It is a moonless night, only broken shadows from the fire in the distance where the destroyed camp still smolders. A group of 6 survivors makes their way deeper into the forest. They are silent. A child sleeps in the arms of volunteer Liz, breathing heavily. Scott is in front, rifle at the ready. We can't go on much longer. We need to stop somewhere for an hour, Lewis says quietly. We don't know who or what is in this forest. We need high ground, a dry place, and silence, Scott mutters. They find an abandoned hunting tower. It is wooden, old, but still standing. It can hold 3 people. The rest hide in the bushes nearby. Sarah turns on the radio. There is static. Then a short message. Emergency. Evergreen Base. Northwest. Coordinates. Medical assistance needed. Infection in Area 3A. Everyone listens, holding their breath. Someone is still fighting. We have a direction, says Lewis. If we cross the forest before dawn, then maybe. But suddenly a sound. A branch cracks nearby. Then another. Slowly. Methodically. Scott raises his weapon. Everyone freezes. Even the wind dies down. And then, a figure emerges from among the trees. A woman. Alone. Bloodied. She walks as if she feels no pain. Her eyes are empty. That's not a human, says Liz. Scott shoots. 1 shot to the head. The body falls, motionless. They're already here. In the forest. Again, the crunch of branches. This time from the other side. Sarah whispers. We're surrounded. Then we'll fight. If we can't save everyone, at least we won't give up without a fight. Scott inserts a new magazine into his carbine. No one can hear your screams in the forest. But when the first zombie rushes out of the shadows, someone has to shoot first. The wind picks up. The fog has lifted, but that's no comfort. Among the trees are dark shadows that move silently until it's too late. The group of survivors huddles near the hunting tower. Jamie, the boy, coughs, his breathing getting worse. Liz holds him in her arms, covering him with a blanket, but she is afraid. Not just for the child, for herself. They're waiting, Sarah whispers. They're not as dumb as they seem. They're waiting for us to make a mistake. Or until sunrise, adds Lewis. He noticed that the infected slowed down at dawn. Maybe the light has an effect. Maybe not. But it's a chance. The first breakthrough. 2 infected emerge from the shadows and rush at Scott. One jumps. The other comes from the side. The rifle fires, but it's too late. One of them manages to grab his shoulder. I got him. Scott shouts. I'm fine. Just a scratch. But everyone already knows there are no just scratches in this world. Sarah insists on checking the wound. Scott screams and struggles. An argument ensues. Liz holds Jamie and cries. Lewis separates them, standing between them. We don't kill our own, but we don't risk everyone for the sake of one person either. Let us examine the wound, or we'll tie you up. Scott finally agrees. Sarah looks, it really is a scratch. No bites. But the paranoia is enough to sow a crack in their trust. The shooting subsides. The zombies retreat. Silently, they disappear into the fog. No one understands why. The sun will rise soon, says Lewis. Maybe they don't like the light. Or maybe they left us. For later, Liz says, looking at Jamie. He's not coughing anymore. He just stares silently at the sky, which is beginning to brighten. There are still a few hours left, but those who have survived to this point are already different people. Fear has broken some. Others have been hardened. But the main question remains, is there really a safe place to go? The morning fog covers the forest like a white curtain. Visibility is no more than 10 steps. But it's not night anymore. It's something else, a chance as thin as a hair. The coordinates match. The base should be behind that hill, says Lewis, checking the recording they intercepted on the radio. They climb the hill, and they see walls. Tall, concrete walls. Cameras. Barbed wire. This is not just a base. It is a fortress. Evergreen really exists. There are people there. Liz exclaims. I see movement on the tower. They approach. Sarah raises her hands. Lewis shouts toward the gate. One wounded. A sick child. We are not infected. The gate does not open. Instead, a microphone sounds. Identification. Slowly. Show your hands. No sudden movements. Everyone obeys. The sniper on the tower keeps his eyes on them. A few minutes later, the gate opens. They are met by people in black uniforms, not military, but private security. They look nervous, as if they have recently been in combat. We are only accepting people until dawn. After that, no one else will be allowed in, says one of the guards. We are in quarantine. If even one of you is infected. Their gaze stops on Scott. He is checked first. It's a scratch. Not a bite, Sarah asserts. I'm a medic. I checked him. He's clean. They're allowed inside. A narrow corridor, disinfection. Then another gate. The base turns out to be unwelcoming. The people here survived, but paid for it with cruelty. Inside, cold barracks, machine gunners at every entrance, cameras. Medics in protective suits take Jamie away. He'll be sent to the quarantine sector. Only medical personnel have access there, the guard says dryly. I'm going with him. Liz demands. No. Sorry. It's the rule. She cries. Lewis squeezes her shoulder. This is not salvation. It's another test. The group is placed separately. They are given water, food, blankets. But there is mistrust in the eyes of the staff. There is a lock on the door. Sarah whispers to Lewis. They're afraid of us. And it seems they're even more afraid of something outside. Lewis looks out the window. Something large is moving in the fog. Slow. Dangerous. Not like those they've encountered before. Survival was only the beginning. Lewis sat on a metal bench, staring at the wall. Liz was silent, clutching a child's blanket, the last thing left of Jamie, who had been taken to the quarantine sector an hour ago. Sarah tried to talk to the guards, but they were silent, like machines. Only Scott was calm, cleaning his weapon, checking his ammunition. The room was too quiet. An alarm sounded. Short, deafening. Then, a burst of automatic fire, somewhere deep inside the base. What the hell? Lewis stood up. Scott raised his weapon. Sarah approached the door, but it was locked from the outside. They locked us in again, Liz whispered. A voice came over the internal broadcast. Block C is in isolation. I repeat, Block C is in isolation. Medical personnel remain at your posts. Seal all exits. Block C. That's where Jamie was taken. Sarah pounded her fist on the door. They're hiding something. I have to get in there. Lewis turned to Scott. You saw that there was something in the fog. Maybe it got inside. Maybe they brought it in. Or created it here, Scott muttered. Looks like an experiment that got out of control. Sarah found a ventilation duct. It was narrow, but passable. She and Lewis decided to go and find out what had happened to Jamie. Scott would cover the door. Liz stayed with him, even though she didn't want to. The ventilation led them to the lower level. Downstairs, lamps were flashing. There was blood on the walls. Medics in gas masks lay motionless. The cameras were broken. The quarantine doors were wide open. And in the middle of the hall stood Jamie, alone, his bare torso covered in scratches. His eyes were black and deep. Instead of hands, he had long, bony fingers. His skin was stretched over his body like a pale crust. He looked at them and smiled. Sarah froze. It's not. It can't be him. But Lewis was already pulling her back. Jamie slowly walked toward them. His body moved unnaturally, as if someone were controlling him from within. The experiment failed, a voice behind them said. It was one of the guards, covered in blood. They tried to create immunity on children. Jamie was the second. Sarah fell to her knees. Lewis fired without waiting. Jamie disappeared in a burst of fire and concrete, but his shadow remained in their memories. They returned to their room. Scott and Liz were waiting. Lewis's face showed silent determination. We're not staying here. This isn't a base. It's a laboratory, and it's already dead. Scott nodded. I agree. It's time to run before they wall us in with this. Hell. Lewis stood by the door. He no longer had any doubts. There was no way to survive here. The ventilation shafts were already swarming with infected creatures. The infected were breaking out of the laboratory compartments, spreading what should not exist. The Evergreen base was not a refuge, but a tomb. Sarah gathered everything she could from the medical center: bandages, antibiotics, ampoules of adrenaline. She acted mechanically. Her eyes were empty. Liz didn't speak. After she saw Jamie, she just held his old toy, a stuffed wolf, in her hands. Scott led them through the service tunnels. His plan was simple: break through back to the armored truck that had brought them there. It was parked in the service yard half a kilometer from the main entrance. The first corridor was empty. The second was not. On the left, near the warehouse, 2 infected were tearing at the door. Scott didn't hesitate. 2 bullets, precise. Falling. Blood. No stops now, he whispered. We have a maximum of 10 minutes before the others come running. They ran to the gate, but it was welded shut from the inside. The base had gone into complete isolation. We can't get around it. Someone had to come out here. There must be a service passage. Lewis exclaimed. They found it, narrow, dark, with gas masks thrown on the floor. The passage led them to the security tower, which overlooked the technical courtyard. And there it was at the truck. Intact, full of tanks. But next to it was a pack of about 20 infected. They stood motionless, silent, as if waiting. We can't just walk through, Sarah whispered. We can make a noise to distract them. I'll try to lure them away, said Lewis. By yourself? Scott asked in surprise. My idea. My risk. Lewis climbed out through the side ladder. In his hands were a siren and a grenade he had found on the guard. He threw the siren to the other side of the yard, then the grenade. Explosion. Flames. The infected jumped up and ran toward the sound. Now, he shouted. Scott, Liz, and Sarah rushed to the truck. They opened the doors. Scott got behind the wheel. Sarah squeezed into the back, pressing against Liz. Lewis, Sarah shouted. I'm here. He jumped out of the shadows, stepping over corpses. One of the infected ran after him, but Scott shot him right in the head. Lewis jumped into the truck at the last moment. The engine started. The gates burst open with a crash. The truck sped out of the base into the morning light of a new dawn. They drove in silence. The sun rose over the ruined forest, over the burned-out civilization. Ahead lay a new unknown. But behind them lay an even more terrifying truth. Evergreen no longer exists. Neither does the world they knew. But in the silence, Liz whispered, We're still alive. So there's a chance. And everyone agreed silently. The first 24 hours are over. Now the real fight begins.